beautiful people. My name is Marika Gay, and this is the Inspiration Trilogy. So, a platform for women across the globe to be inspired and empowered through the sharing of stories and sharing advice for each other. So, look, today's guest is Jessica Terlick. Did I say that right?
You did, you did.
Who's an author and empowerment coach. So, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Marika. Thank you so much. And what a beautiful introduction. So excited about the work you're doing. So
Ah,
good.
and it's so important that we sort of share through the village of women in our networks and share that across the globe for each other, I think. So I'm really excited to have you on board today. So for those of us, for those listeners who may not know who you are and your services, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you got to where you are.
Awesome. All right. Well, yes, my name's Jessica Terlick, and I am now a published author and an empowerment coach. But my story really starts with being a primary school teacher and working primarily with year 5, 6s, and 7s, and lighting up every day and going into work and really enjoying the work that I was doing in the classroom.
Yeah.
And also on the other side of it, I was really into being productive and managing my time and very, very organized. So I started talking about teacher wellbeing because I was noticing a lot of colleagues of mine were, feeling a little bit run down, a little bit burnt out, and, not on top of it as much as they would like to be. So I ventured out into teacher wellbeing and started running workshops because I loved showing up in that way. And soon enough, I started to notice a really common theme amongst, in particular, female teachers in a teacher wellbeing, and just those feelings of not having enough time, feeling great one week and then not so good the next week, and just feeling, like even guilty and all those heavy words of like, ashamed that they didn't feel consistent and they weren't showing up the way they wanted to be. And across the whole board with women in particular, juggling so many balls, right? And just thinking, well,
Yeah.
yeah, and just being so hard on themselves. So anyway, I created this workshop called Creating More Time and Energy. And it was one of my most popular ones that was getting booked. And I would show up and talk for about 60 minutes about productivity hacks, how to manage your time effectively, setting priorities, talking about, releasing that guilt when we drop those juggling balls and so on. And then I would save the last half an hour to speak about how you could utilize your menstrual cycle. And the very first time that I shared that, I had a lot of blank faces, a lot of faces that were looking at me very strangely. And I thought, oh, Jess, what have you done? You've really thrown people. Yeah, you've really thrown people off task right now. And I thought I had lost them. But when I asked them, I was very curious to say, well, how are you feeling about what I just shared there? And they all said to me, why did you not just lead with that? Why didn't you tell us that we could organize our life according to our menstrual cycle? And so from that moment on, I started talking about how we can organize our lives according to our menstrual cycle as women. And even if we do not have a cycle, we have an energy cycle that we can tap into. And I started to step away from teacher wellbeing because we were getting a big call for it across the board with all women. And then I started looking at it in my classroom and how young girls were operating on their own energy cycles and how it affected their test scores, how it affected their relationships. And soon enough, I started working with coaching clients, working with them in that capacity and identifying and tracking their cycle and what they were noticing and how they were showing up and how they could utilize it in their life. And then I decided that rather than being able to share it across everywhere, no better way than to actually write it all in a book. So that is
Yeah.
why, I published my book, She Energy, and it's your self-awareness guide to harnessing your energy cycle.
Oh, I love it. And I love that name as well. And I think everything that you've just explained is just it's so powerful because, as women, I mean, it was a long time ago when I was at school, and even just talking about sex education and things like that was
Mm.
very minimal. But even these day and age, there is a bit more conversation around, becoming a woman in menstrual cycles, but not how to navigate through those energy levels and the different emotions. Because being a teenager alone is difficult enough. And then having those changes throughout your cycle, it's so important to teach that, I think. So what you're doing is so amazing. So how do you if someone comes to you, how do you teach women to begin that process of utilizing their energy cycles and getting along that way?
Yeah, definitely. I start off with reconnecting with ourselves and aligning. So the first part of my book is all about aligning and connecting into that self-awareness, and almost stripping back and decluttering, because we are in a patriarchy society, and so everything, so everything is I know we're on the same page with that. So
Yeah.
everything is built around that whole hustle, 9 to 5, consistency, showing up, push, 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 go, 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 strive, strive, strive. And women, we are really good at that because we've learnt to become really, really good at that. However, we are naturally, we both have masculine and feminine energy inside of us. But we naturally gravitate to being able to harness our feminine energy a lot more, or better in the terms of, we're not going to get all those things like burnout or feeling stressed or anxious or depressed and all those feelings that come along with being burnt out and at the end of our.
Because we're striving to be feminine and sort of be that nurturing and mothers and wives and things like that, but also we're going so far down that path of masculinity in trying to show that we can do it all and we can be just as good as men, but we don't need to prove we're just as good as men, because we are.
Yeah, that's right, and we very much are.
There's so many. It's just, and I'm not sure if you've seen the latest Barbie movie. I'll just mention that because they really touch on this subject a lot, and how how things have kind of changed through the years. It's a very interesting journey. But anyway, going back to where you were at.
Okay, but because I think and that's why we get both excited about talking about this, right? Because we need to have more conversation like this, and we need to be able to discuss it, and then for people like your lovely listeners to hear it, and then talk to their female friends about it, and so on. It needs to be spoken about and brought light on. And what I find is, before I start getting clients to start tracking their cycle, we actually really need to reconnect in with ourselves, and even reconnect with that feminine side, because it does. Because there's that perception that it's soft or it's weak or it's not as go-getting, like, you're not achieving with it as such. We need to almost release those expectations, and we need to release those like misconceptions of what feminine energy and what it means to be a female in particular. And so my first chapter is like permission to stop, because we can't keep going. And especially the women that I do work with, they've almost got to the point of like, I can keep going, but I'm missing something, like there's something missing and I'm not quite sure what it is. So we need to stop to be able to reassess it. So that's where we begin with. We start really stripping back, we declutter, we anchor in, we really get in touch with being honest again with who we are, what we want to achieve, who we want to be, what we want to have. We talk about relationship audits, we talk about the environments that we're in, we talk about connection with others and connection with ourselves. Once we're able to generate that self-awareness and noticing our thought patterns and all our things that we're saying to ourselves, and the things that we're putting out to, and what are we getting back as a return. So once we've done all that, then we start looking at tracking. And I'm a big fan of journaling. And so we start with just the basics, and I'm a big fan of food. So food is a really good way to be able to start tracking your cycle and identifying the different foods that you feel like at different times. And then we start the education around the fact that, like, because I'm not the first person to find out about this information. I am just like a different vessel that's sharing my own spin on it. So there are a lot of wonderful women out there that are sharing how your cycle works and how it affects your day-to-day activities. I like to go down the approach so I find it's easier to communicate with women and their daughters that we operate in our seasons. So winter week, spring week, summer week, and then autumn week, because when we're going back, when we go back to our tracking side of it, it's really easy to identify that in our winter week, we want those like sort of heavier nurture, like the stews and the casseroles, and, we want something a little bit more heavy and dense. And then when we come into our spring week, we're quite happy to have our salads and our avocado on toast and all those sorts of things. And then when we go to our summer, we might want to feel like we're eating a bit more like celebratory sort of food and getting a bit excited. So we might be a bit more nostalgic in that week when we're eating. And then when we get into autumn week, where it feels like all our leaves are dropping off us, and all those juggling balls become a little bit harder to keep up in the air. Yeah. Then we are reaching a little bit more for the sort of quick fixes, so like the carbs or the chocolate
Yeah.
or, all those sorts of things. So we just start with the basics and we look at different things when we're tracking. And then from then on, once it does, because you can't just track one cycle, because there's women that might not even have a cycle or not even connected in with their cycle, or it takes a little while to just start noticing. So we just start with one thing and then we look at things and build on it.
Wow, I think that's so interesting. And I love that you go through the different seasons throughout the month of the cycle. And that really resonates with me too. And it makes so much sense because I
Yay.
know, at certain weeks you crave all that junk food. And I know that I eat a lot more. And it's obviously because your body needs that nurturing. It needs a bit more because it's getting ready to,
Yes.
to require. It's just so much more energy to do whatever it is that it's doing. So I really love that also that you help women from teenagers and young women learn more about themselves. So tell us about what kind of programs you have for them.
So currently I have a She Energy for busy women and then She Energy for preteens and teens. So we've got the two programs. They run very similar to each other. However, obviously the content that I share is very different
Yep.
because we've got women that have obviously their life experience. They're very familiar with their period. They know what's happening, and really what they're doing and what we're aiming to achieve in that program is connecting right back to their feminine energy and understanding that these are the things that they thrive with during these particular weeks. So, for example, even with our wonderful podcast interview that we're doing today, when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, I knew that I was coming into my autumn and winter week, so there was no, it's not going to be my best time to be able to speak and share, and
Yeah.
those weeks where you're going to jumble your words. Winter and
Yeah.
autumn week are going to be the weeks that
Yep.
you're going to do it. Whereas in my spring and summer week, I know I'm very confident. I can actually communicate more effectively. I'm still going to probably make a few jumbles here and there, but it's a lot more. I'm a lot more confident in myself in the way that I'm going to present and speak. So I'm
Yeah.
able to schedule those things according to that as well. So when we're looking at the She Energy for women that are busy or mums that want more, is we're looking at those, even those mediocre tasks of housework, and when you're going to feel like you're on top of the washing basket. Like if you went and checked my washing basket right now, it is all done because I'm in my spring week. I'm feeling like
Yep.
it. All those moments. Have you ever had those moments where you go to that, like you open up that particular drawer or the cupboard or even the fridge and you go, hang on a second, I'm just going to clean it out right now. Have you ever had
Yeah.
those moments? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
go,
And once you get started, you're just on a roll, and I
yeah,
love that. It's awesome.
yeah. And then we tend to get too excited and go, right, I'm going to do the whole house, right?
Yeah.
And then before we know it, we're like, oh, no, I don't feel like it. And if you've already started making those piles and then all of a sudden your energy cycle switches, those piles stay there for another 4 weeks until you have that, you're in that sense of energy to change it again. So in that course, we talk about that and we schedule it and we understand that, in this particular week, I am going to feel energized to declutter my house. So I'm going to actually schedule because it's 1 month, it's really 1 week of a month where I'm going to feel like doing those things. And so before we know it, by the time we get to the end of the year, our houses are feeling like we're all on top of it. We've done all those jobs that we wanted to get done.
Yeah.
And we also look at it through the lens of with our work and businesses as well, because I have a variety of women in that course going through it at the moment. Then when we go to our lovely preteens and teenage girls, what I'm really trying to foster there and what we're focusing on is, one, the connection to mums. So the mums are working alongside with them because I send all the programs through email. So you don't need to have any login details. You don't need to check into membership sites or anything like that. It comes to your email. And so you get an opportunity to review it. So the mum is knowing exactly what's going on with their daughter and what they're going to be focusing on. We set up beautiful mother-daughter dates, which is nothing extravagant. Yeah, nothing extravagant. You don't need to book fancy days out. What it really means is an allocated time. And it is very structured in the sense that we're creating a beautiful container. So it's not, 2 hours here and 4 hours the next week. It's a really, really closed container. We sort of look at it to be 45 minutes to an hour, and it can be done whether their siblings are in bed or perhaps the other kids are able to go out on the weekend, like with the partner or the father or the wife, whatever the family dynamics there are.
Yeah.
And so then they're able to have that beautiful meeting and conversation and connect. So I send the prompts to have the conversations. I send the actual voice memo from me of what the preteen or the teen needs to focus on for the month. I encourage the mum to also go through it as well, because it's like their own personal development journey. But that's because the big theme is all about leading by example and then inspiring. So by sharing your own experiences and how you're perceiving things or going through things. So we really create that really safe space in that container. And then each month the focus is different. So we start off obviously looking really internally and how they perceive themselves. And we're able to collect a lot of information on our preteens and teens when we do that. So then over the 12 months, we're able to see how much they, it's not even improve. It's just how much they start to see themselves as we see them, because we see them as these beautiful, shining lights with so much potential. And, what happens in our systems when we're younger, our hormones tend to take over. Our peer group becomes a little bit more important to us, and what they say to us really does penetrate a lot more. So
you do, and you become a little disempowered through those years because of all that stuff, because you don't always know how to navigate through, and you are very emotional. And I think that mother-daughter process that you're just talking about is such a beautiful bonding experience as well. And there's so many mothers might struggle with that through those years, and I think that's a beautiful platform you're giving them to do that. So do you do a one-on-one sessions as well, or in-person sessions?
Yes, definitely do. So I have my one-on-one open for, we either have like a 3-month, a 6-month, or the whole 12 months. So the 3 months all about shining and just really reconnecting with ourselves. And, just those, if you've just got that one thing where you feel like you're missing and you're not quite sure what it is, or perhaps you're really interested on how you want to start tracking and how to utilize it. Like if it really sounds exciting to know how to do that, that's where we work in the 3 months. The 6 months is a little bit more where they're maybe perhaps feeling like they want to have a bit more of a change in life. There's some change they want to invite into their lives, and not quite sure how to go about it, and would I'm like the biggest cheerleader. So I like to, let's go with it. Let's bounce some ideas off each other. And then the 12-month one, of course, is like the more of the transformation, because then we're able to really work through all the seasons and tracking week to week and have those conversations of what popping up. And then by the end of it, it really does track along with my book. So it's more of that one-on-one. If people have read the book, then they really are like, oh, I really want to know more. And then that's how we can take it to the next level. And then I have beautiful sessions where I have with the mums and the daughters come in. So it's not like couples counseling by any means. It's just more of a special time that they can have with each other. And sometimes it's, just working out what to discuss in those moments as well, but also just a really good way to sort of model what can potentially happen when you're having those mother-daughter dates, and the sort of questions and the way that you can support each other. And I think that's where my teaching background really supports me, because I can see it from both perspectives. I can see it as a teacher that is teaching those that age group in particular, and then also from a mum perspective as well.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I definitely want to know more. And I know there's going to be many listeners out there that do also, because it's just such an incredible thing that you're doing. And it's such a powerful thing as well. So for those who are looking to reach out to you, who want to perhaps do one of your courses or know more about the mother-daughter sessions, what's the best way to contact you?
So definitely by emails, like the straight up, because that you're making that decision and you just want to find out more. But of course, they've got all the social media handles as well. We have a beautiful Facebook community and a Facebook group, so you can just jump into that. And it's just really being connected and seeing what's happening. And when I do put up things, and just I think it's following your intuition. And if you know that that's something that you want to look at, or you really in particular want to find something for your daughter, then it's just a matter of reaching out.
Oh, beautiful. I love hearing what you're doing. I think you're doing amazing things, and I love that I'm able to give you the platform to help share your work as well. So look, thank you so much for coming on today. Like I said, I really love talking to you, and we'll be putting all the links to everything below for all our listeners. And thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you to all our listeners. Make sure you subscribe and tune in to the next episode, and we'll see you again soon.